Well, yesterday we covered how an overwhelming majority of voters believe cancel culture has gone too far. The HarrisX poll used the Merriam-Webster definition to define cancel culture. Cancel culture is defined as the practice or tendency of engaging in mass canceling as a way of expressing disapproval and exerting social pressure. We have more data on Americans' view of cancel culture to dive into, so let's take a look at that. The survey found roughly 70% of voters said cancel culture unfairly punishes people for their past actions or statements, while 31% say it does not. Almost 80% of Republican voters, 65% of Democrats, and 64% of independents agree that cancel culture unfairly punishes people for their past. I mean, are you surprised by this, Ryan? I'm not. Everybody hates cancel culture. It's very weird for some elite Democrats, elite media people, to fixate on defending cancel culture, or either pretending it doesn't exist, or then when it happens saying it's fine. Doesn't seem like a good tactic if literally nobody likes it except you guys.
Right.
You guys being the elites, not most Democrats.
Right. The move is to, one of two moves. It's not cancel culture, it's just accountability.
Right.
Okay, that's just a different word for what you're saying. And they say, well, it's not like the person's dead. They're not canceled, they're still alive.
Right.
And so, if somebody loses a job, they're like, well, they're still rich. If somebody has their career halted as a result, but keeps their job, they say, well, they still have their job, so they're not canceled. If they still have a Twitter account, they're not canceled. Basically anything short of being killed is used as evidence that a person was not canceled. And then if you say, well, X, Y, Z happened, they say, well, that's accountability.
Right.
Like, okay, well then let's talk about that. Was the accountability appropriate? And obviously, this is a spectrum. Nobody would say that there should not be accountability for bad behavior.
Right.
No, like there's nobody on the planet who says that. The question is proportion and the level of forgiveness and redemption.
Yeah, what I found interesting about this poll was, for one, 25% of Republicans thinking cancel culture was okay. I'm surprised by that. That's not a whole lot different from Democrats and independents, which were more around a third. So a quarter to a third is, But when it comes to cancel culture, I think obviously a lot of us feel like as a society we've just gone way too far with it, punishing people for something they said or tweeted out 10 years ago, or something they did even 20, 30, 40 years ago in some cases, unless it's a crime that was committed. Obviously, if a crime was committed, then people need to be punished for the crime. So if you murdered somebody 40 years ago, you don't get to say, listen, that was 40 years ago, I've changed, right? No, you're going to be held accountable for that. But things like, cultural norms that have shifted, and we as a society have shifted together. People are being unfairly punished for actions that, when you step back and you look at where society was 20, 30 years ago, that was unfortunately the norm, whether you like it today or not. And we definitely then take that and then punish a person and say, well, now you're going to lose everything today because of something you did years ago.
Yeah, and many progressives believe that you should be rehabilitated and eventually forgiven. Even if you did commit a crime, you should still be able to eventually be employed and vote. So, but for them to then turn around and say, but not if you tweeted something offensive when you were 16, it makes no sense. Anyway, we have to leave it there, so we'll have more Rising after this. Stick with us.